whatever you want. It's supposed to be the best. I have to go through all that. I have to like debrief myself after the entire.
I'm sorry, Izzy. That's on you. That's a terrible setup.
How is it on me?
You can't put in your address?
I put in my address and the pin drops in the neighborhood over. This was not in the association bylaws or anything. Hey, by the way, if you happen to Uber Eats, this is going to be all wrong. They didn't tell us this before we moved in here.
My takeaway is that Izzy is the neediest Uber Eats customer ever.
Needy? I need my pin to drop where I'm at. What are you talking about? I don't want to have 5 discussions with these Uber Eats drivers. They don't want to talk to me. Why do I want to talk to them? It's a terrible experience.
Okay, this is one of those things.
But I still order Uber Eats like at least once a day.
Sure, but like young folks out there, if you're looking at a new apartment, don't just look at it when it's one time of day where one thing is happening. Turn on the water, go back at a different time, make sure you understand everything that's going on around there because you've got to know.
Well, that's what the inspector's for. What you got to do is just real quick, just order food delivery and see what happens. Like right when you check out the house, right when you get there, order something, spend half an hour checking it out. If the order does not go smoothly, you probably don't want to live there.
This is part of the pre-checklist. I mean, this is what we do. He's Izzy Gutierrez. That's Joon Lee, who wrote a great story, by the way, about his Korean heritage and BTS for the undefeated. Make sure to check that out if you haven't already. Alabaster, what's the first topic?
You know what they're calling us, by the way, Clinton?
What's that?
They're calling us ICJ, which could just be our, an acronym for ICJ, or it could just sound like ICJ, which sounds pretty cool.
Where did that come from?
That would be
Who
June's
came
rapper
up with
name.
this?
I believe the same little hand that does that fourth box there sent it in a tweet.
ICJ?
Yep,
That sounds, ICJ sounds like some kind of an organization that has meetings in a really expensive place that we're spending too much money on in order for people that are already rich to be gathering. I don't know. It's big Davos vibes from ICJ. What's up,
so icy.
All right, let's get started with our. Okay, we went from Island Boys to Gucci. I'm with it. This is a trend I can go with. But our first topic, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He dropped a 50-burger last night on 21 shots. And our question is, should we all be focusing on Giannis and the defending champion Bucks and not the 76ers and Nets?
I'm going to address this with some level of seriousness because let's be honest. I mean, yes, they're the defending champions. Sure, this was a great performance, but we do not tune in to the NBA for, regular, stable stars that just play basketball and win championships. That's not what we're here for. Okay, this performance is tremendous. 50 points off of 17 of 21 field goals, made a bunch of free throws, and he had 14 boards. To me, this is a situation, Izzy, where the definition of news is things that are new. It is not news to me that Giannis is still abusing people left and right in the NBA. So, yeah, sure. I think the Bucks are definitely a tremendous team. This has not changed, but let's not be real. Let's not be phony about the drama that has been the last 2 days in terms of Philly and Brooklyn as well.
No. This is what they call sleeping on, right? This is when we get too complacent, when we're just too comfortable with all of this talent. Man, they don't call him the Greek regular. He's the Greek freak. There's nothing regular about these performances. 7 dunks last night, right? I think that's a season high.
Yeah,
7 dunks in the game. 50 points. How many shots did he miss? 2, 3, 4? Unbelievable performance. 4. Wow, that's a big hand.
Wow, real hand there. That was, hold on. Can we go back to that? That was a real Charlie hand. That was amazing. Sorry. I got distracted.
This is not just common stuff. This is, we talked about him being sort of and I think people said about this about LeBron early on, where he was sort of the Shaq of the perimeter. Well, Giannis is the new Shaq because he gets all those points in the paint, not with, girth, but with just length and ability. And man, it's fun to watch. I was at a game, I will never forget this game for the rest of my life. It's Giannis versus Anthony Davis. It's the Lakers. And LeBron wasn't in this game, but it's in Milwaukee. It's Anthony Davis, right? A guy who people would think is a freak, period. And Giannis just absolutely ate him up. 47 points. Dude had no shot. And I'm just thinking, wow, these conversations used to be had, hey, who's better, Anthony Davis or Giannis? It's not even close. Like, Giannis is way up here. So I refuse to allow you to say Giannis is regular or this is everyday news. Come on. Like, this is unbelievable stuff. And if you're missing it, you're missing out.
Yeah, you can't take Giannis for granted. And I really worry that we're going to get into a similar place with him that we did with LeBron, where everyone would talk about, could this team win the championship? Could this team win the championship? Could they get to the finals? And then at the end of the day, it's like, Giannis is inevitable. Like, obviously, he's the guy that's going to get there. I think the thing that stuck out to me last night about him, too, is that he's starting to add a little bit of this mid-range jumper that he hasn't had in the past. Like, I was looking at the shot chart from his last couple of years. You know, he wasn't shooting them in the same volume that he is now, I think. You know, the 50th point that he scored last night was this, like, little mid-range jumper that he did a little crossover before. Like, it was a little bit of a move that he hasn't had in the past. But, you know, I was looking at the shot chart, and he was shooting about 30 to 34% from mid-range in the last couple of seasons, and it's up to 44%, and he's shooting them at a higher volume before the All-Star break.
That's a big jump.
And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, we've talked about Giannis adding the three-pointer. We've talked about him just adding a jumper in general. If he's adding this mid-range game, like, it creates so much more space for everyone else on that Bucks team where, you know, he might be able to take another step to a point that I think it's even almost hard to imagine that he could become even better than he is already right now.
Let me rephrase what I was saying, perhaps by doing Charlie's job a little better. Is Giannis the most improved player in the NBA? Perhaps, even as who he is. That, to me, is a more interesting discussion than saying, should we be talking about the Bucks more? I am not downgrading the greatness by implying it happens regularly. I'm noting, just as when the New York Post noted that Snoop smoked weed before the Super Bowl halftime show, everybody was like, yeah, we know. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole point here is that we know how high the level is for who Giannis is. Now, this was obviously a great performance, and obviously the dunks are tremendous, but you're not going to tell me.
You're not going to tell him anything because he's frozen, apparently. So, wow. The drama, the cliffhanger here. Joon, do you follow LBJ history on Instagram?
Like Lyndon B. Johnson history or LeBron James history?
No, it's LeBron James history. It's a great question. But no, the account is LBJ history.
It's
LeBron James history. It's a great follow. Like, it's an amazing follow. And you look back at some of his performances and some of his just stretches of games, and you're just like, I don't think I really took that for what it was worth, like, while it was happening. Like, I think I took that for granted somewhat because he established so early on how great he was and how great he was going to be. And that's what I don't want to do. Like, I stared at that box score for a while today. I was like, I'm just going to look at this because I don't want to be shocked by this 15 years later and just be like, dang, Giannis was really, really good. How come nobody was talking about this stuff? Because we weren't. Like, if LeBron did this today, we'd be spending 3 entire segments on it. But, you know, when he was 28, 29, it'd be like, okay, look at that. He dropped 50. That's great. And so, yeah, not only that, but and I'm glad that Clinton has some technical difficulties here because if he thinks Giannis scoring 50 is boring, me talking about free throws is going to be boring.
It's also,
but Giannis, go ahead.
Well, it's also one of those things, too, where I think we have a tendency to do this as sports fans of taking greatness for granted. Like, it's happened with LeBron, I think, for almost his entire career, especially after that first or second year where it was just like, of course LeBron's doing this. Like, he's a generational talent. He's this monster athlete. Like, of course he's doing stuff we've never seen before. We've seen this with Mike Trout, where every single year he puts up, a 300 batting average and hits 40 homers and plays, above average defense and is, potentially a top 5 baseball player of all time. We're just like, we're shrugging. We did this with Tom Brady when he was with the Patriots, where year after year he would put up these incredible seasons. It was like, of course it's Tom Brady. Like, I look at what Giannis did last night, and I'm trying to appreciate every small thing that he's adding to his game right now. He's taking things to another level, and he's making, like, we are overlooking the Bucks when we talk about the Warriors and the Nets and the Sixers. Like, Giannis is Giannis. He's unstoppable right now in a way that I think is hard to overstate. Like, there's nobody in the league who can defend Giannis, and especially if he adds that mid-range jumper. Like, how many guys are there in the NBA that are as undefendable, in NBA history, that are as undefendable as Giannis if he adds a mid-range jumper? Kevin Durant?
Can
like,
we
is
put
that it?
I mean, it's a different type of undefendable. It's like the same way Shaq was undefendable, even though he didn't have any sort of, outside of the paint touches or what have you. But yeah, especially, and this is one thing that Mike Budenholzer will talk about, Giannis at the end of games, not only is he more okay with not handling the ball initially, but he knows he doesn't just have to throw his neck at the rim and try to get free throws. Like, he can finish around the rim, he can finish 10 feet from the rim, probably not going to take a long distance pull-up in a crucial part of the game, but it's a sort of a freedom to know, hey, not only does it have to be me who starts and finishes the plays, but it doesn't have to be just that one way of doing so. So you can see that, and a lot of that was lifted from him when he won the championship. It's like, oh, okay, it's not all on me. I have other people with me, which is what I think, in terms of like pressure, is why the free throw numbers have been so improved.
Right.
And Charlie, if you can put that number back up there. Look, and he said yesterday, it was a great quote yesterday after this game. He said, I get upset when I miss free throws. Like, I work too hard. I love it when I make my free throws. It gives me rhythm. It makes me feel good. I can miss every three. I can miss a layup. But when I make my free throws, it's like my dopamine hit because I work extremely hard to make them. And I was at a Bucks practice earlier this season, and I was watching him versus Grayson Allen in a free throw shooting contest. Other people were all doing it all throughout the court, right? All throughout the practice court, and whoever misses automatically loses, so it's make, next person make, and their game lasted the longest, Grayson Allen versus Giannis, and Giannis won. And it lasted way longer than everybody else's, which means he wasn't missing. And so the guy, can do all of these things, is a freak of nature on the basketball court, and the thing he probably worked on the most is, and Clinton, this is why I was glad you were gone, because it's the most regular, boring thing about this conversation, was free throws.
Yeah.
And those free throws are the difference between him being, a 26-point-a-game scorer and him leading the league in scoring right now, like he's doing. And he's never led the league in scoring. So you want to talk about those, minor changes. He's probably not the most improved player, but those minor changes change, probably the best player in the game already to even slightly better, and that is absolutely scary, and it can let them win a championship or project them to win a championship even though they might not get Brook Lopez back. I mean, they probably will, but not a healthy one.
I must have asked a good question. I asked the question, stepped away, and Izzy was still talking about the same topic when I returned. So.
No, Joon talked a little bit in between. Right? Don't come back all judgy when you don't know what was going on.
We're doing a Giannis love fest because for
That's
some
fine.
reason you wanted to pull down Giannis and say he was boring today.
I just said regular greatness. You know what I'm saying? That's all.
Well, we
I'm saying.
shouldn't take regular greatness for granted.
That is quite the oxymoron.
Some of us
regular greatness.
Some of us live with it every day. What's the next question? I'm joking.
Well, I actually have a follow-up about
I'm pretty
that.
sure he just checked out there. I think he just checked out. There were no technical difficulties. He's like, I don't want to talk about
difficulties.
my toaster strudel is ready behind me. I'm going to go ahead and have a couple bites.
Sorry, I have one follow-up on Giannis because
Toaster
I think
strudel.
that you guys we're at an interesting place, which, not to toot my own horn, but brings us back to this question, and that is like, are we too caught up in this drama? Because, like you said, Giannis has now ascended to someone who we think is now the best player in the league. But I think if you look at this season, without the history we have with Stephen Curry, without the history we have with Kevin Durant or LeBron James, I think you could pretty clearly say the two best players in basketball are Nikola Jokic and Giannis, and we don't cover them like that. We really don't.
I'm not going to do
and
this.
I mean, if you look at Jokic's numbers regularly in games that we don't even touch, and there's like 30-point triple-doubles left and right. And so, yeah, I think that's the case. To answer the question, the perfectly fair, legitimate, wonderful question, I do think we can sort of not be focusing on the Sixers nearly as much because they got to get their stuff together with James Harden. Last night lost by 48 to the Celtics without James Harden, but with Joel Embiid. But the Nets, I don't think you can sort of look away from when it comes to talking about the Bucks in comparison, because if they're healthy, and look, I'm telling you, Adam Silver's already starting this. That mandate's going to be lifted before the playoffs in NYC. Like, Kyrie Irving is going to be able to play because there are already conversations about, well, it makes no sense. Why does the visiting player do this? They're already taking the mask mandates off. Trust me, we're going to get to a point where Kyrie's going to play. So it's Kyrie, Ben Simmons, and Kevin Durant. The Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant combo can make life quite difficult for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't really see Joel Embiid. I mean, maybe Matisse Thybulle, they can make it difficult as well. But I think overall, the best combination of a team that can sort of beat, of those two, Sixers and Nets, the best combination, the Nets probably better suited to compete with the Bucks. So no, not done talking about the Nets yet.
I also think part of why we haven't been talking about Giannis as much in the same way that like ESPN is like the LeBron James network at times in the way that we cover him is that LeBron has always been good at, and this is something I would assume sometimes a proactive media strategy and sometimes not, but he's always good at kind of stirring the pot, the drama. Like, when he was with the Cavs, there was always the subtweets, always questioning his feelings about, Kyrie and Kevin Love. Like, Giannis seems to just be a dude who, like, wants to live a simple
Tells
life.
terrible dad jokes is what he does after the game.
Like,
That's what he does.
He goes home, he's a dad, he spends time with his family. He's not on Twitter like stirring the pot, like trying to get attention. Like, he just wants to come, he wants to like be Milwaukee's most famous resident. He wants to be the best basketball player in the world, and then he goes home and like spends time with his family. Like, for us, like gas bags in the media talking about this, it's not as entertaining, but like Giannis is still the best player in the NBA right now. And so he's maybe not giving us all the quote unquote content, but like it's part of why we're not talking about him, because like how can you talk about Giannis like being a family dude when, you know, we're busy talking about Ben Simmons and his, you know, his drama with the Sixers and James Harden, his drama with the
Clinton, what would you prefer to talk about? Would you prefer to talk about another team in the Eastern Conference?
No, I'm just not down with this notion that after 2 entire calendar years of this crap with Simmons and Harden, that when they finally have twin dueling pressers where they actually talk, that the next day we're supposed to be, are we talking about them too much? No, this was the payoff. They finally show up and we can discuss this in good faith because they actually had things to say. I'm sorry. Y'all forced me to get invested in this. I don't mean you two. I mean the general NBA public. And now that we're here, you're damn right I'm going to be talking about these two guys because it matters in the Eastern Conference. The constant here is Giannis and the Bucks. The change element are the Nets and the Sixers. That's my only point from a larger narrative standpoint of the last 2 seasons in the NBA. There's nothing personal about Giannis. That's all I'm saying.
I will just say you're welcome because Charlie tried. He really tried to get me to talk about the Miami Heat because they were top in standings.
I saw that.
Can't in good conscience talk about them when they're coming off a loss at home to the Mavs, so we can just move on and just say, hey, they're still in first place, but not the right time.
Okay, all right. Morale is not great.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate
Although
it.
Tyler Hero did miss the game, I'm just saying. He wasn't.
All right, well, Clinton, we'll be sure to not check in when James Harden and Ben Simmons actually play basketball.
Right. See, that's what's gonna happen when they have a big couple games. I'm gonna come back and be like, "Where were the Bucks? We could be talking about the Bucks, and y'all are not gonna be talking about the Bucks." That's what's gonna happen. Guaranteed.
All right, moving on. And the next part is a book that's coming out from journalist Ian O'Connor, who's writing about the rise and reign of Coach K. And there's some interesting details about the succession plan in Duke's coaching. And our question is, did Coach K do Tommy Amaker dirty?
I'll start with this, man. I watched this story. I watched Keyshawn and Jason Williams talk about this morning on our network. And, I mean, this is another one of those situations where it's hard to describe. But, you know, when we talk about the NFL and their hiring patterns and people getting passed over and the numbers and the sort of obviousness of it, it's easy to look at it in a very sort of, I just want to say shiny way and think about, well, that was wrong. That you shouldn't have done. But when you think about these kind of institutional patterns where the changes don't really happen more than once a lifetime, and to see somebody's life work just get kind of cut out of the way, I mean, it was hard to sort of swallow. I mean, I understand.
Well, Clinton, let's lay that out then. Let's say what that looks like. Because you had Tommy Amaker, a former Duke guard, who was an assistant coach with Duke and then went on to coach where? He went
Harvard.
to Michigan.
And then Harvard.
Well, he has 2 other stops.
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Seton Hall, Michigan, and then Harvard. And he's been at Harvard for 15 years now and was reportedly told he would be the successor to Coach K.
Well, Duke offered him the job.
Right.
Yes. And then Coach K basically told him that's not really going to work because I want John Shire. The story sort of unfolds how heartbroken Tommy Amaker, who's a black man, was. And it was just like, wow. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Part of the reasoning was for him to do it, I believe, if I read this right, for him to do it, he would want to be back in Duke as a lead assistant for a year, therefore moving other assistant coaches sort of down a notch, and then the following year taking over. That was part of his reasoning to say, hey, John Shire, you're going to be the guy instead. Sorry, Amaker. That's how it was played out, correct?
No, thank you for that, Izzy. And I mean, I sort of watched over that because as far as I'm concerned, that's BS. But what I'll say about this is that he definitely did him dirty. I mean, in the larger context of everything we think about in terms of relationships that are made, how people think that they can make it to the top, ascension plans, never mind succession plans, it was really scary to think that Coach K, it's not that everybody looks at Coach K as sort of the stalwart of what coaching excellence should be. People know that he's very good at it. But this changed how I felt about him in terms of who he's been over the last 20 years. I cannot lie, Joon. I looked at that and said, wow, what a jerk move considering, and I don't love it. It just doesn't sit right with me in terms of everything in a career that he's had, Joon.
The question that I have about this particular situation is why weren't Coach K and the Duke administration talking about how to play this out? Like, why is Duke putting out an offer to Tommy Amaker only to pull it back after realizing that Coach K didn't want this. Like that, I think, is the main problem here. Is why weren't those two sides talking about what the succession plan was? Because obviously Coach K is Coach K. He's going to have the power to help dictate kind of the situation here. But why is Duke going out of their way to offer this job and then taking it away from Tommy Amaker without having consulted Coach K about this in the first place? Like, there is a process problem here on top of just, I have to imagine Tommy Amaker is heartbroken from going through something like this. Like, that is what I think the main problem is. Like, why isn't the university president talking to Coach K and trying to figure out how to make this process, not result in things like this happening?
So, and see if you guys can work through me with this. Like, I try to look at it from both sides, doing a pros and cons list as to, which guy would be best for the program. And with, like, Amaker, you've got, the Duke ties, obviously. You've got some history there. You've got the years of success at Harvard. It's going, 15 years now? And you can, point to that and say, hey, he's doing that there with the Duke on his front and Coach Krzyzewski behind him. It's unimaginable what he can do at Duke, right? That's a perfect fit. Scheyer, you could say, currently in the program, hasn't been away for a long time, connected with the program currently. You could say sort of clean slate, right? Doesn't have history with other programs, you could say right now, like, the number one recruiting class, which of course is behind the power of Coach Krzyzewski, and he's going to make sure that he gets a strong recruiting class going in. But those are basically the pros for him. And I could understand that. Like, I can totally understand that. What I don't get is that Joon said sort of the miscommunication, like, hey, we're going with this guy. No, we're switching over to this guy. And the part that's really confusing for me is if Coach K is stepping down, why does he need this much control of the program? Because reportedly Scheyer would allow him to have more control of that. Why does he necessarily want that? That part I don't understand.
Well, this is where we get to a point that comes into my wheelhouse, because I remember how much this affected the Hoyas when the late, great John Thompson stepped away. We're at a point now in college basketball, if you think about the lifespan of the sport and its popularity, those initial pillars and those guys who built what are now the blue blood programs who hung around, they just have an unwielding amount of power simply through longevity and what they've done that doesn't really have anything to do with these academic institutions on a certain level in terms of decision making. I think about a guy like, at Syracuse, Boeheim. I'm sure when he leaves, he's going to be able to name whoever he wants and do it however he wants to. There's like 5 total people in the history of college basketball that didn't go out with controversy, that have put themselves in a position to flatly just have more power than other people, Joon. And I think that that's unfortunate, because you're right. That can't happen. And that's, honestly, this is unbecoming of what I thought this program was, to be quite frank. This is kind of embarrassing if you think about everything that Duke represents in terms of how they try to be in the college basketball world. It's like, this is extremely sloppy and does not speak well for what they've been doing so far. I hate it for Tommy Amaker, and I kind of hate it for the kids that are going to end up getting involved too, because it becomes this de facto story about how good that basketball team could or should not be, when it probably shouldn't and isn't fair to them either.
Yeah, and it's a total miscalculation on the part of the Duke University administration and not thinking about how much power Coach K should be having over the situation, how much influence this has, and the fact that this is coming out and going to be a cloud over the entire kind of first year of Jon Scheyer's tenure at Duke. Like, I'm not necessarily qualified to talk about whether, it's Tommy Amaker or Jon Scheyer should be coach. Like, they're going to make the decision that they're going to make there, right? But it is not the right way to set up a coach for success, to have this looming over as an entire thing where people are constantly questioning, like, should Tommy Amaker be the guy? Like, you shouldn't have a succession plan, especially with a guy coming off, the career that he's had in Coach K, to have his successor be put in a position where he's constantly answering questions about something that's completely unrelated to the basketball, and was also, to Jon Scheyer's credit, like, completely out of his control. Like, why wasn't Duke and Coach K thinking about this way before any of this stuff was happening in terms of finding a coach and a replacement for him?
Well, it sets a poor start to the next coach as well, because, we always talk about, hey, the guy after the guy never really works out. And if this is the way this happened, if this is how, Coach K handpicked him and maybe did Amaker a little dirty, if it doesn't succeed early on, not only does it take a little bit away from Scheyer and his coaching ability and his future, but also just from Coach K. And, hey, how's this going to work without Coach K on the sidelines? He picked this guy. It's not really working out. I'm going to go somewhere else.
So I have a question in line with that. So obviously the most recent one of the succession plans was the University of North Carolina, another blue blood program where Roy Williams gave his blessing Hubert Davis to be the next coach, and the UNC administration just let Roy handpick a successor. How did this happen that Duke didn't ask Coach K, that they offered the job to Amaker before knowing what Coach K wanted?
It's ridiculous.
Well, this is kind of the issue, Joon, quickly. And that's what I'm saying is that we can talk about what damage might be done down the line. There's an outside argument that this getting out at all indicates that there was a bigger problem that will not and cannot be fixed. Because if Coach K is operating sort of as his own sort of sovereign nation in terms of decision making, well, what's going to change about that just because he's not the coach? And that's a huge chain of command issue in terms of like what you want going forward. The story getting out about Tommy sort of getting his heart broken and Shire being caught in the middle, that's one thing. But you've still got to figure out what's going to happen next, and not just with Shire, but with Coach K. Like, bro, what are you actually going to be doing if you were willing to potentially blow up the end of your reign just for your guy to get there when you're not even there and the power you still wield? How's that going to go? Tough spot.
Right. Is Coach K going to be looming over John Shire, where we're constantly questioning, is he the middleman for Coach K? Is like Coach McKay actually making the decisions? Like, it just puts Shire in an awful position.
I agree.
Well, this to me is so this is the big question. Is Coach K Duke basketball? Is he bigger than Duke basketball? Should they have Coach K on the front? Would that get more recruits than actually Duke?
The Coach
and
K
I think
school.
this is what we're going to find out. Like, if people want to go to Duke, it's going to be because of that aura and that history and that man. It's not going to be because of the guy he chose as his successor. So we're going to find out right now. Can Duke be a great program with Coach K in the background? And if that's the case, is it because of Coach K? Probably. And if not, if he just disappears, is Duke going to be a thing? I don't know. We've seen bigger surprises than that.
Yes or no question quickly to get out of this. Joon, do you think that Coach K thinks he's bigger than Duke basketball?
Ooh. Yes, but I don't.
Izzy, one word answer. Izzy, do you think that Coach K thinks he's bigger than Duke basketball? I'm just messing with you.
No, I believe he believes he's established something so big that it can go beyond him. But that's even more egotistical, isn't it?
I think that's Coach K has established a legacy that I think is bigger than just Duke basketball. But Duke was the kind of the funnel for him to establish that.
I think he does think he's bigger than Duke basketball, and if I was Duke basketball, I'd be very afraid of that. Next topic.
All right, we're moving on to a game of what are the chances, but I do feel.
9 time around here. Let's go.
Yes, I do feel compelled to say that they sort of have put Coach K on the jersey, though. He looks a staggering amount like the Blue Devil.
Yes.
And that logo has evolved over time.
One of those.
Also, speaking of Duke basketball, isn't there an unverified report out there that Zion's going to need a second foot surgery?
Wow, we're just throwing out
Potentially.
unverified reports about former
Potentially.
No.
Allegedly.
Because you can't take it back.
What are we doing?
At least you gave the boilerplate language on the front.
I
So
did.
no allegedly
I love
card
it.
needed. All right, first, what are
love
the
it.
chances? We have a clip for you. And our question is, what are the chances James Harden taught Joel Embiid this move?
Oh.
This is great
So now-
because after all these months of seeing the inside of the Sixers practice facility, we finally see what the developments are. I mean, that looked awkward.
Well, this happened inside the
I know, that's what
practice
I'm saying.
facility.
He's clearly been
this
working
next
on
clip,
that.
actually.
Yeah.
This next clip.
It kind of looks
it
like
is.
he's like tiptoeing in a hallway to make sure he doesn't wake up like his parents, you know?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a clip of those other two gentlemen, the coach and Embiid, telling James Harden it's a travel, and James Harden saying, no, it's not a travel. And then Joel Embiid does it in a game and gets called for a travel. So I believe he wins the argument, does he not?
He definitely does. And I want to just make this point to note, comment that if you're grabbing your hamstrings, you're not really practicing step backs, which is another story altogether as to Harden's arrival in Philly. But, I'm going to say that it is a 99% chance that James Harden taught Joel Embiid that move.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have visual evidence, so I'm not even going to mess with the handwriting. I'm going to go 100%.
Okay.
I'm going to go with absolutely percent.
Uh-oh,
I will
new
say,
nines.
though, now that I'm
up
trying
and
to
down
think
nines!
of... Ooh,
Look at that!
Look at you. Or is that somebody else walking in to do that? I think that's a
Does he have a
replacement
different hand model? That's a new hand? Is that an offhand?
If you actually pay attention to the muscles being used when you're stepping back, you're not using your hamstrings. You're more using your quads. Are you not? Like I think you can do a million step backs with an injured hamstring and not get hurt.
I'm just
not
relaying.
sprinting forward.
Is it?
No, I know. I'm talking.
Thing too?
I'm talking to T-Mac. I'm sorry, okay. T-Mac, my friend.
Go ahead, Joon.
Isn't it also like a little bit of a tendon thing, like pivoting?
I don't know. I don't know how Harden's tendons work at this point.
What muscle do you work the most when you're traveling? That's a great question.
That's the question we need, not Bucks Nets. We need what muscle do you work? I'm gonna go with probably something in the glutes region because you've got to sort of base yourself. You got to make sure that you stop and don't fall over. So
it might be your core. Everything is your core. You know?
Yeah, sort of a core situation. What's next?
All right, we got another NBA video for you, and it's what are the chances CP3 taught Devin Booker this move?
Very efficient. Booker working with McGee here.
It happens quickly. Oh, you just missed it.
And looks like he's hurt.
Watch that bad boy again.
And he's got 13 first quarter points. 1 seconds remaining.
We've seen CP3 do this for like 2 decades now. That exact move.
You guys have played some pickup basketball in your lives, right?
Yes.
Of course.
Have you ever nut checked somebody, even by accident?
I've done it. I did it in a varsity game. I didn't do it on the court because I knew
Was it an accident?
It was not an accident, no.
Okay.
I
Joon?
have done it by accident.
Okay. I have never, period, whether by accident or not, never, nor have I been nut checked while playing basketball. I just believe that, yes, I'm going to go with 99, just a little bit of a doubt in there. But these guys talk all the time. And if you ask like old school guys, you know where your hands are and where your elbows are. Okay.
Right.
We talk about like, people will tell you that one All-Star game, Dwayne Wade definitely broke Kobe's nose on purpose, right? But then they'll give somebody the benefit of the doubt when they do that to somebody's groin area. It's like, you know exactly what you're doing. You're getting your little push off. Oh, it's a little low. My bad. And you just get your jump shot off. It's 100. I'm sorry, 99% accurate.
I mean, let me ask you this though, Joon. Do we think that this is something that he picked up by osmosis, or do you think that he pulled him aside and said, "Listen, I'm gonna teach you a nut check, bro. This is like the way. This is the way." You think he Mandalorian him?
It hits where it hits.
Like this is a Mandalorian tribe, like custom.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you think
people on the court? What way do we think that this happened? Do we think that he picked it up, or do you think that it was a taught behavior? I'm genuinely serious.
Well, there's the saying that you're like the average of like the 7 people you spend the most time around. Like I think this is a partially osmosis thing. So I would say 100%.
So Chris Paul was with JJ Redick on his podcast one time, and he was explaining
Former Dookie.
why the rip-through move rule should be there, right? And JJ's like, oh, it's not natural basketball if you're taking a shot, whatever. And Chris just says, look, if you're a defender and you know it's the rule and you know I'm going to do it, be smarter than putting your hand up there because I'm going to do it. And JJ's like, yeah, you're right. And so CP3 is one of the most smart basketball players ever, and nothing is by accident, and everything is thought through. So if you're going to say he goes through that much thought for that motion, you know he's gone through that much thought for that motion too. And whether or not he's actually taught it to his teammates, you do learn it through watching, and you learn the little tricks. So yeah, not an accident.
I'll give you that. I just hate the idea of playing to calls as opposed to playing your opponents, but that's another story. What's next?
I do like the idea of CP3 and Devin Booker being in a room together discussing like how to best hit someone in the nuts.
Right, with the Beskar going, you know what I'm saying? They're slamming things down, making different armors, you know? That'd be great.
I love seeing all these Star Wars references go straight over Izzy's head.
Izzy has no idea what we're talking
about. Yeah, 100%. I'm thinking of how good infants are at accidentally nut checking. Like that's what you got to learn from. You know.
All right, guys. Next game, we're gonna play a round of if then. We'll give you a conditional statement. You guys fill it out. First one.
Whoa.
Is that the noise for the game?
Yeah, hold on. Let's.
I think my AirPods are dying.
What is that? What is that supposed to actually be?
It sounds it sounds like one of those like jiggly things. You know what I mean? Like those jiggly rulers that make. Noise.
I know what you're talking about, but this sounds like a cross between what is supposed to be a vinyl rewind scratch and also like it going through
like
some
a
sort of
spaceman
weird
cartoon
space
running
filter.
away really
Yeah,
quick.
let's hear that again. I need to know what that is listed under in the sound effects library. Like that is
Like
how much
if
of a nerd.
Scooby-Doo did an episode in space, I would expect to hear that sound.
That would be the sound during the transition of when they did the actual time travel. Like one day they're in the mystery machine, and then that sound happens.
It's a completely normal sound. Find a new slant.
It sounds like
Okay.
BB-8 dying.
I've also never played this game, and that's really depressing, Joon. So what is this game then?
First
Okay,
topic.
here we go.
If the Celtics win their 10th game in a row tonight, then blank.
Joon, this is your account?
Then they're still like fine. They're like an above average playoff team right now, but like I don't think that they're nearly championship contenders. Like Jason Tatum, I think, has made some strides. Like the defense has been awesome over the course of the last 6 weeks. The schedule has been not good, so I don't actually put a whole lot of weight onto the number of that win streak. But you have been seeing the team buy into the defensive schemes of Ime Udoka. You've seen Jason Tatum kind of playing off of his teammates better. He hasn't been kind of going hero ball as much. He's been kind of taking his shots when they kind of come to him. He's been hitting more kind of these superstar level shots. I think the addition of Derek White has been really good. He's been kind of the perfect complement off the bench and being a guy who, assists well, plays solid enough defense. There's not really a defensive weak link on this team. Grant Williams has been awesome over the course of the last couple of months. He's hitting his corner threes. I think the Celtics are on the up, but I don't think that they're, a serious championship contender in any way, shape, or form.
If the Celtics win their 10th straight, all of us, and that means you, but mostly me, need to eat it. Because there was a point not too long ago, I believe it to be early January, where I know I was saying it, and a lot of other people were saying it, break those guys up. It's time for Jalen
I have evidence
and
that
Jason
I did not
to
say
go.
that.
Okay, you should eat it anyway, because you held back just because you're in the area. Look, we all said this was enough. Ime Udoka looked like a bad hire for a second. It was all a jack. Marcus Smart was like, hey, is he good? Is he bad? Nobody knows. And here we are, 9 games in a row, looking like the team that we expected them to be in the Eastern Conference, and Jason Tatum, fittingly starting in the All-Star game, hey, maybe the Celtics, just like the Atlanta Hawks, maybe they take some time to get revved up, and maybe this is who they are. So, yeah, if they start running off some games here, more games, you're just going to be like, oh, man, that's a talented roster with some long wings that can really match up. And if Robert Williams is healthy, defensively, they're going to be really good. So, yeah, we should all just eat it if they win it.
I was told that there was a rarefied deity in Milwaukee, Wisconsin that was such an unattainable height that everybody else should just stop trying, and that, really the Bucks were the pinnacle of excellence because of Giannis, the Adonis, as I like to call him.
No, we called them entertaining, which you refuse to acknowledge. That's it.
You
That's
said
all
it
we
was
were
boring,
acknowledging.
that
That's all
he
we
was
were trying to say.
I said it was
Entertaining.
regular. Anyway, my point is that I don't know that even if they've reached respectability with a 10-game win streak, even Joon doesn't think that they're a factor of any kind. I still don't necessarily know that that's an eat it situation. It might be for the coach, but I don't think it is necessarily for any of these players involved or really the long-term plan. The Celtics don't scare anybody, so sure.
Oh,
okay.
I guarantee you a lot of this was driven by negative talk. A lot of everybody thinks you're done, yada, yada.
That's
yeah.
fair.
And Izzy, to push back at you, even everyone in Boston was like, I think we might need to break up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And I just thought it made no sense given the fact that those two guys are 2 potential superstars. How often are you're not going to get a trade value back in return for both of them that matches the value of what you get from them on the court? The problems have been from a distribution standpoint. They didn't have a point guard who could distribute in the way that it did. Marcus Smart was out with COVID for a while. He came back. The team has been playing better since then. But the thing I keep thinking about is that this team I would consider them a maybe fringe potential championship contender if they had a guy like Lonzo Ball who shot threes and was a good distributor and took off the kind of offensive load off of Tatum and Brown. But
this is what drives me crazy, Joon, about the Celtics. It's how long have we known? We've known about Jason and Jalen for a while now. Look at these point guards. Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker, Dennis Schroeder, any of these guys distributors to you? No, they're all scorers. Why are we taking these point guards? Give me somebody that can dish the ball and make Jason a little bit better, which is all he needs to be to lead the league in scoring, is that much better. So yeah, I believe some of this roster construction has been a bit
the roster
odd.
construction is fundamentally flawed with the Celtics right now because I think they need a point guard who's more of a distributor. Like Drew Holiday would be a perfect fit for the Celtics right now. A guy like him who, is able to score when he needs to, but can also play third fiddle. Like, that's the person that I would love to see on the Celtics, but obviously that's not happening given that he's on the Bucks. But the roster.
Kyle Lowry would have been great.
Yes.
Kyle Lowry would have been a fantastic choice. That's a good call. Funny because the GM used to be the coach. Weird. What's up, Alabaster?
So worth noting, they are 4th in the entire NBA net rating, and also worth noting, you guys are just listing all defensive team point guards that would fit with this team, and I think almost every team in the NBA would like an all defensive team point guard that can shoot.
Yeah, but it's not mutually. It's not. Don't
smart aleck me there, because you're talking about they picked Kyrie Irving. Like, they picked Kyrie. Like, you could obviously you're going to take Kyrie Irving over a defensive-minded point guard. No. Like, they made those decisions. Like, Kemba Walker was a bad choice. It was just a bad choice. Anything better than Kemba Walker's level of defense would have been good, and distribution and everything else. Like, it was just a poor choice.
And I take the net rating thing with a grain of salt because the Jazz are number 2 in net rating. And it's like, if the Jazz are number 2.
Grains of salt flying about the kitchen. We love it. That's all I have. Just kitchen bits. Talking about toaster strudel and whatever. That's all I got.
All right, we got one more for you guys. We got a clip.
Ooh.
If LeBron's knee won't be healthy until the offseason, then blank.
How's the knee right now?
It's here.
There it is.
It exists.
Is there,
It's here.
you described when you first were coming back on it, that's basically around-the-clock treatment. Is that still the case? Is it just rest that's going to get you back to a better place with it? What's
Well, it's the same as my ankle when I had the ankle sprain last year. I think that was last year. The only way to be back to full strength is with rest, and I don't have the luxury of having rest. So we have to wait till the offseason.
Well, this is my account, and I just want to state first and foremost, I'm so impressed by LeBron's commitment to just a standard black do-rag, the utility do-rag, which is not necessarily there for the super stylishness. It's legitimately about the hair care that it does for us, you know what I'm saying, in terms of the black community. I appreciate that educational point. But I think
Is that what you think it is?
It's a
You don't
do-rag.
think it's him just covering up his hair so people don't point and laugh at it?
Well, there's partially that, but do-rags have a purpose,
Okay.
which is in the condition.
No, I do get that.
Yeah,
I do
okay.
get that, but I don't know how much
sure.
hair he actually has under there.
Well, no, but
That's the
anyway,
problem.
the point is that anyway. What the thing is that about LeBron and the Lakers is that, and this was Ramona was talking about this on Wendy's pod the other day, is that like they're kind of stuck. Like, I don't necessarily know that there's any fix coming along the way. Like, if his knee's not better till the offseason, well, then they're just going to continue to sort of be who they are. And I don't know that they're going to be any better next year because it's not like they're going to get rid of a bunch of those guys considering how much money they have tied up. Like, this is what it looks like when I don't want to say the wheels fall off, but like when things just kind of break down in terms of LeBron. When asked about his knee, refers to his ankle. The thing we used to never talk about with LeBron was injuries, but one injury refers to another now. Next thing you know, you're thinking about kinetic chain stuff. And you're just like, ooh, maybe this just isn't going to sort of get back to what it ever was because he said he doesn't have the luxury of rest. He does have the offseason, but because they're probably, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but this doesn't look good. It's the slow decline, and it's kind of sad, to be quite honest, with LeBron James. That's the Lakers.
And it's one of those things that we've taken for granted for such a long time. To circle it back to our first topic, is that LeBron's been able to be this great for such a long time because we've never had to have these conversations about his health in this way and how it affects the team. Because it wasn't that long ago, maybe like 6 weeks ago, where LeBron was having this stretch where he was playing as well as he has in his entire career. He was putting on more points per game than his last year with the first stint with the Cavs. Like, LeBron has always been obviously a human being, but he's been so healthy to the point where we've kind of taken all the health stuff off the table when we think about him. And so to be talking about this is it's almost a little it makes me a little sad that like we've gotten to the point where we have to have these conversations about LeBron and how his health affects the team because we've seen this pop over the course of multiple times over the course of his tenure with the Lakers.
Just to finish the sentence, then it's going to be make the play-in slightly less entertaining because I think that's where LeBron and the Lakers are headed. They should currently right now be at Goran Dragic's doorstep begging him to play in Los Angeles. Because, I think this team has just kind of come to the realization of who they are. And you're probably going to get a little stretch here where Anthony Davis plays really well and Russell Westbrook might have a couple of salvaging type of games. But for the most part, unless you're going to get a 28-year-old LeBron in the playoffs, you're not making a run here. And so I think, you see, I don't want to say LeBron is entering into that sort of granddad mode, like retirement stage of his life, but he's already talking about wanting to play with his son. He doesn't look devastated that his team is, not one of the top teams in the conference and that didn't make a bunch of moves. He's not sitting there pulling a Kobe type of fit, at the GM, say, hey, you got to get me some help. It's like, I'm settled into this. I'm going to give you what I can. If I can, I'm going to try my best next year. Probably got another couple more years before I catch Kareem regular season points. Boom, I'm done. Like, I don't think he's at the point where he needs any sort of championship or anything to get his engine going or to really legitimize his career.
If you don't have a sounder for this, play the space sounder. Okay. This one's not better, but go ahead.
Guys, we have big time breaking news.
All right.
LeBron James is a human being. Breaking news.
Whoa. I got to do my own research on this one. By the way, I would like to commend LeBron for normalizing shirtless interviews. I think that is something that should be spread across all sports.
That's a big part of your operation.
Is that part of Izzy's ploy to eventually do debatable without a shirt on?
I mean, this is what we're talking about here. Let's not, when Izzy's on this show, shirtless, talking about heat culture, is when we know that we can close the doors safely, knowing that we did a good job for America.
If you're saying that, if I'm, positioning that athletes should do shirtless interviews, if you're saying the interviewers themselves should take their shirts off, I'm fine with that as well.
So, but I do want to say this quickly, though. I mean, you introduced the question, and I don't want to get off on a whole tangent about this, even if we do have lovely cards for it. But, what if the LeBron retirement question is an interesting one to me? Because you mentioned it, Joon. He's been healthy to the point of almost miracle to this point of his career. If LeBron knows that all of a sudden everything just kind of falls apart quickly, do we think LeBron himself is going to want to be out there just kind of running around? Or do you think LeBron, somebody we know discusses his legacy with quite a bit of fervor, hangs it up and says, I can't have this kind of footage of me going out there, Willie Mays falling down in the outfield for the Mets kind of situation overall?
Not even close to that, though.
I understand that, but I mean in LeBron terms is what I'm saying.
I'm just preparing myself emotionally for the idea that we might see LeBron James in an Oklahoma City Thunder uniform with Bronny one day, just some random team. I think that there's a chance that could happen because LeBron clearly cares about playing with Bronny at some point. He's not just talked about it recently, but for years and years and years now, how his dream has been to do that. Bronny is I think a top 40 prospect in his high school class right now. He's a pretty good high school basketball player. He's going to get recruited to a pretty top tier program, but it's he's not going to be a number 1 overall pick probably where he has his choice of where to go.
You can start the conspiracy theory right now. Bronny James is someone's going to cook the books. He's going to end up in a major city, probably New York, maybe Miami, a little reunion. And he's definitely going to go play with LeBron. It will not be in Oklahoma City, Sacramento, Indiana, none of those stops. LeBron's not doing that to himself.
Really? You think the NBA bends over backwards for that? I mean, even though LeBron...
will they have to for a top 40 prospect? Just make sure he ends up
You're saying someone's going to sign Bronny for the retweets?
Yeah, I mean, basically.
No, I'm going to say somebody's going to sign Bronny for a year of LeBron. For the best story in the NBA that year. The greatest player of all time playing with his son. Come on. I remember following, was it Jeffrey? No, that's his middle name. I don't know. Michael Jordan's son to UCF thinking, I'm going to watch UCF games now. I didn't watch any, but it was a big deal.
I love it.
All right, we got a couple bonus topics. I will say, funniest scenario, LeBron adopting Evan Mobley so he can play with his son back in Cleveland.
Wow.
First one, though. First bonus topic. This one comes from the Scout Man. He just wants some more information. I feel like Clinton needs to defend his decision to intentionally hit someone in the junk in a high school basketball game.
What?
Yes, please.
What
more
is the context
information.
of this?
This is easy. He did it to me on the soccer field in the previous season.
Can we get this gentleman's full name,
So I
please,
did it to
and
him
where
on
he
the
lives?
basketball court when we got him in the gym. Pretty simple.
So
He
this
the
was
goalie.
this was a cold revenge dish.
He was the goalie. He hit me in the junk when I was going up for a header because we were banging him out like 5-zap, and his team sucked. But he was pretty good on the basketball team. And so when I saw him when I was guarding him, he was the point guard. He got a little nut check. It happens. Okay? Understand that.
What is the ethics there in soccer and nut checking? Because like you cover your junk when you got the wall, right? So might as well just cover it every time you get in the air.
My opinion was that he should have jumped with me. Instead, he kept himself on the ground, which conveniently allowed him that angle to hit me in the junk when the ball was clearly in the air. You know what I'm saying? That's my point. You're the goalkeeper. Get your butt up in the air and try to grab the ball. Nah, he's trying to let that one go. So just, anyway, it was a whole thing.
All right, we got one more.
How'd you do it?
How did I do what?
How'd you nut check him?
I didn't have the
Offense,
ball.
defense?
I was playing defense, and it was through a pick. It was like a round. It was like a lap. So it's the way to do that. In case you're wondering. I've been to the Mandalorian school of. Why am I outing myself like this? Yeah.
All right, we got one more.
It happens.
Clinton Yates, master sack tapper.
That's a display name on Twitter waiting to happen. What's next?
All right, last one. We have a tweet from Long Live the Queen, who just wanted to point out, just wanted to note it because it's a fact. Izzy listed off several point guards he would take for the Celtics over his top 5 point guard of all time, Kyrie Irving.
You know, as James Harden on the bench yesterday will tell you, fit matters, okay? And just like his terrible outfit did not work for him, Kyrie Irving doesn't work for everybody. I'm sorry, but he's still top 5.
What was happening with the sleeves? Like, was he wearing a vest? Like,
he was wearing 4 outfits in one. Like, the
we get a
pants didn't
picture
go
of
with
that?
anything, the shirt didn't go with anything, the sleeves didn't go with anything, and then he was wearing, like, the thing that you wear for a fitting. Like, it doesn't make any
it
sense.
also, it's not like proportionally, it just like doesn't look, it makes his legs look like really, really short. Like they're my legs.
There's like
on
a
his
watermelon on his pants. Why is there a watermelon on his pants? Like, I don't understand what's going on.
Also, I'll take this time to point out that, like, not everybody who's a quirky dresser in the NBA is by default stylish. You know what I'm saying? Some guys are just kind of out
Kyle
here.
Kuzma, stylish. James
Some
Harden,
guys are just kind of out here doing whatever.
style adjacent.
Right. I don't want league fits to think that every single fit that somebody throws on is necessarily by default the jam, because this is a bad get up.
Right. Just because you're wearing like loud clothing doesn't mean that you know what you're doing.
Exactly. His jeans
Here
are
I am
very
trying to
interesting.
find the team that Steph Curry does not fit on. I'm doing a lot of gymnastics for Kyrie Irving, but you know what? It's worth it.
The
Any
sage. You
team
have to
that's
burn
up
the sage.
3-1.
Basically. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
Still,
Enter the
so I
playoffs.
forgot. I have to show you guys. I have a.
Is it a
Waffle
completed
House
toaster
Vistas.
strudel? No.
This is not a coffee table book. This is a bathroom book in my house.
A
You open it
bathroom
up.
book.
Yeah, you open it up and it's got different views of different different Waffle Houses around the country and showing you the different places that they're in. It's really cool.
This
Check
is
it
the
out.
only bathroom book, Clinton. There are no more bathroom books. This is it. It's been created,
My
and
God,
death to the
Izzy,
bathroom.
get your life. You can't even get off the phone when you're in the bathroom on the toilet.
That's the best time to be on the
I
phone.
don't
You
want
get
to
so
be
much
on the phone in
done.
the bathroom. I want it to be like
That's
a
what I'm
peaceful
saying.
moment.
Yes.
No.
Perhaps
You
the
have
Waffle
peaceful
House.
moments outside.
Smothered
Why
and
are you
covered.
inviting chaos into your bathroom time?
That's crazy.
Hey, by the way, just don't ask to borrow my phone, though.
Yeah, oh, God. Goodbye.
I'm just saying. You never know.